Well, hello there again, friends. Today is 2/22/2022. That's a little mouthful. And today is the Odin Project Vlog Day 65. And I am happy to report that I am 100% complete with foundations. Oh, does it feel so good? I know I have a lot ahead of me, but it feels great. This is such a milestone. So I know I said in my last video upload last night that I was going to take the night off, but I kind of I took a peek ahead and I knew that I didn't have a whole lot left. So I just went ahead and um, finished it. And so we'll go over that real quick. So we have introduction to the backend here. And this talks about the back end and what it's defined by. I won't read it verbatim. Let you guys read it. It's pretty wordy. It's not long. It's just all words. There's no today will be no coding. We're not gonna be hitting the um, Visual Studio Code or anything like that. Just discussion and celebration for a major milestone. And I actually will take tomorrow off for sure, and a little bit of a celebratory break, if you will, for completing foundations. It took me 65 days of uploads, plus you got to figure I was studying in between on much of that as well. So I probably have, um, uh, probably at least 75, 80 days of work, which for someone who, like me, who works full time, day job, and I have a family, that's quite the feat. And to be able to do this, so basically, I did this foundation section in basically, we'll just say 3 months, essentially. It's not quite 3 months, but that's really good. I am so proud. And I'm not trying to toot my own horn or anything. I know it sounds like it, but I'm just really excited about this. So, anyway, the learning outcomes of the back end, it just talks about the difference between front end and back end development. It's kind of self explanatory. The back end is basically your server end that houses your database, your web apps, or your web server, excuse me, and your framework and um, the what am I missing? Yeah, database, server, framework. Yeah. So, and it just there's a couple of good articles. This first one I liked. It was a Treehouse article. Um, they're just defining the difference between front end and back end. It's a short, sweet little article. A lot of it's redundant, but that one's a short and sweet little one. And they have another article they throw at you for another site that talks about backend running scripts like PHP, ASP, JSP, generate HTML. They're talking about these are the part of the backend processes. And how to take in an incoming web page request and accessing a database, whether it's MySQL, PostgreSQL, NoSQL, MySQL, MongoDB, those sorts of things. Talk about ideas of encryption and encrypting and decrypting data, uploading, downloading, storing records, distributed file servers. This is kind of like more my world. This is kind of what I do day to day. I don't work on web servers per se, but I deal with web servers and app servers and database servers in a distributed environment on for my daily work. Excuse me. So this is that part of the structurally that's not new to me. What will be new is, excuse me, Tretz is taking over tonight. What will be new to me is all the development work that goes into the back end, and creating, linking the back end to the front end. Basically, the development work is all new to me. Never done that before, but so there's a cool article about that. And then Code Academy has a decent article on back-end web architecture. Talks about definition of clients, back-end. A lot of this is redundant, but I did read all this, and I encourage you to do the same. talks about HTTP protocol and URI and how to combine them to create routes. Pretty cool stuff. Web APIs um, and structuring your APIs, and they go through a cool little example of mapping out a request. This is kind of neat. I won't read it, but I will highlight it for you guys to read. Definitely key in on this. It's a cool little kind of a step-by-step when a client makes a request to the server and what that looks like from round robin from the beginning to the end, and routing it back to the browser that this person sees. Person named Alice, this fictitious person. So yeah, so that's pretty cool. And then there's then we go into the there's your knowledge check, and so those are the articles. And then the next lesson goes into frameworks. This I know nothing about. So it's kind of funny. I'm not mad or anything. It was just kind of funny how, it's important to learn how to do what they call vanilla JavaScript, vanilla CSS, vanilla HTML, which is what it sounds like. Just learning the bare bones and the basics and the fundamentals like we have been for the past 67 plus days. But you can have a framework do a lot of that work for you. And there's different frameworks you have backend frameworks, and you also have front-end frameworks. I generally knew the concept of a framework, but I didn't know what it actually does, and I still kind of don't. But these articles go through a pretty decent definition of that. So this one, they bring you to web or dev.to for what is a web framework, and so this talks about the back end and the front end. So you have the front end frameworks like Bootstrap, built by Twitter. I've heard of this before, but I guess this must be some type of canned look and feel, because it looks like it says it can be easy to spot Bootstrap sites. So I'm assuming they visually look the same. But I just found this interesting because what I was saying earlier is that you could use these built-in frameworks to. I've read in one of these articles. I don't remember if it was this one or not, but that you need to learn the fundamentals first, but then you can apply a library or a framework on top of that, and have it basically automatically builds your front end out for you with some code. But if you don't understand how the framework works and what code it's bundling behind the scenes and under the hood, you won't be very effective developer, and you won't get very far, is basically what I was reading. And I don't know if it was in this article. It was in one of these articles here on the framework side. But so it was just kind of funny to read that, though. But totally agree. You need to learn the basics first. And here's some of the front end frameworks. You have Vue, Angular, JS. I've heard of much of these. Angular 2, React, Ember. I wasn't familiar with Ember. And then backends, so you have Spring MVC, which I've never heard of. I'm probably going to butcher this, but Django or Django. I've heard of that one. And I have some experience with Python, so that'd be kind of cool to learn that one. Flask, I've heard of that one. I watch subscribe to a couple other YouTubers who create who are in this tech space, and they use one of these guys I watch. He uses Flask. Actually, a couple of them do, and Python, which is pretty cool. And then we have Ruby on Rails, which is one of our course deviations next. You can either do Node.js or Ruby on Rails. That's one of the, and then Meteor, never heard of that one. Express, that's if you choose to go Node.js route in top, you'll learn Express. It's JavaScript, obviously, very customizable, lightweight, less built-in features. Node is very fast. It talks about learning more, and then this article is another one. It goes over again a little more redundancy. The article is 2 years old, but it's still good. Teaches you about client-side programming again. It's kind of like redundant knowledge building. Helps you cement in the concepts a little bit more. server-side programming. So like Ruby's the programming language, and parentheses is the framework. So you have Ruby on Rails, you have Python, and in Python you can use Django, Flask, or Pylons. PHP is Laravel, Java is Spring, and Scala is Play. Just an example. Again, this article is kind of old, but and then you have your different databases, which I have a basic understanding of databases. I'm not a pro with them. I know how to, add and drop and create tables and stuff like that, but that's about it. I have much to learn. You got MySQL and Postgres, which are both relational, along with vanilla SQL, which they didn't mention here. And then you have MongoDB, which I have heard of, never dealt with it, but it's non-relational. Document-based. And you have caching, and then you have your server side. This is a little bit more familiar to me. You have Apache or Nginx. There's different ways to pronounce it. I always pronounce it Nginx. And then they talk about the technology stack that they use. Oh, this article is kind of cool because that's not really that fun there. But I think this is the article that talks about, okay, so do's and don'ts. I'm kind of flying through this. This is important. So it talks about like how not to choose a stack, and they tell you don't choose it based on these certain criteria. I'll let you guys read through that on your own. And then they say here's the criteria for choosing a tech stack. You want to use simple, based on your app. Is it going to be a simple app, a mid-level, or a complex app? Is it a heavy processing load or a low latency need? Time to market, basically how much time do you have? Do you want out-of-box solutions or integration with third-party? Developer availability, costs, and then this is the different contributors on GitHub. How's the testing environment? Is it easy to test? Is there a lot of test engines out there available for it? And then costs, developer salaries should be taken in, and this data is old, but basically they're pretty much all around the same hourly rate. Maintenance costs, of course, and then security concerns and scalability. I don't think, yeah, this is it. So this is cool. This article goes over different companies and the stacks they use, which I thought was kind of interesting. So like, for instance, Airbnb uses, for front end, they use JavaScript and React, and then for their back end, they use Nginx for their web server. Ruby's their programming language on the back end. Rails is their, that would be their framework. Java, okay, so I guess they got a little extra layers here. So then they have Java as well. They use MySQL for their database, and Redis. I think Redis is the I think that's the I don't know. I don't remember what that was. That's the keying, I think, the key values. Let's see if they talk about that more, because I can't exactly remember. Redis are the most widespread. Oh, caching. Okay, so that's their web caching. That's important to know. I can't believe I forgot that one. Yeah, so you have web caching, which is the speed at which your data is served back to your end users. And then they end it with server-side framework, more of a bland MDN article. I won't spend a lot of time on this, but I encourage you to go ahead and read through it. They give you examples. This is the only article actually that gives you, or a link that gives you actual snippets of code. There's no expectation for you to know exactly what's going on here, but they just kind of give you a little taste of routing and how it looks in different frameworks. So this is a route in Django or Django, however you want to pronounce it, and then this is a route in Flask, which uses Python, which is, as you can see, very succinct, very simple. I don't think we're gonna learn Django or Django, or excuse me, well, actually that, or Flask. In these courses, I don't think. I think we're going to be focused on Express, which is fine, but these are nice. I actually think Django is probably the best as far as Python goes for comparing between Flask and Django, depending on what you want it to do. But everything I read said Django has the best out of the box features. Um, you sacrifice a little bit of customization with it, but with Django you have a full-fledged toolkit that basically is an all-in-one center. It gives you your security. It does your user accounts. It passes those routes correctly. It's easy to work with basically. But it uses Python, and I doubt we'll go over that because I don't think Top teaches you Python. I don't think in the next deviation lessons or deviation courses. So, but anyway, it goes through that. I won't spend any more time on that. But so we get to the bottom here, and we go to next lesson, and it basically says choose your path forward. So in a nutshell, this just talks about don't get stuck on a programming language. Stick with one and learn it. Like if you want to go, here's where you take the fork in the road, basically saying if you want to do full stack Ruby, hit that button, and don't deviate. Don't then go back 3 months later and do full stack when you're not done with Ruby. Basically say take it home. Or if you want to start with JavaScript, do full stack JavaScript and learn Node.js with that and Express. And if you want Ruby and Ruby on Rails, go this route, but don't bounce back and forth. So after some consideration and some article reading and some basic market research and prayer on my end, I believe I'm going to go with full stack JavaScript. Not only for the marketability, but in my market, but even though that doesn't really matter all that much because we're in a virtual world, I do believe maybe not my first entry-level dev job, but I'm sure that we'll all get the opportunity to work fully remote if we want to. But so the thing that I really am honed in on for me is that we've kind of, in my opinion, up to this point, we've learned the basics of JavaScript. So it only makes sense to me to continue building on JavaScript, and using it in the backend will be easier to learn since we've already learned the foundations of JavaScript. We learned about arrays and variables and functions and loops and all that stuff. So it's just it just makes more sense versus Ruby. Yeah, you still have those basics, but the syntax is different, and you're gonna have to relearn that part. So it's not to say I won't finish full stack JavaScript and go back at a later point, after this is completely done and do Ruby. Maybe I will, maybe I won't. They don't discourage that, but they do discourage you popping from one to the other. So stick with one, complete it, and go from there. So I'm going to decide JavaScript. So that's where we deviate. I'm not saying either's wrong, either right. It's just my market here locally is definitely favors JavaScript more than Ruby. So just for the sake of opportunity costs here locally in my region, if my first job can't be remote, I had to basically assume it was going to be an in-office type situation. Then JavaScript was more plentiful. If you decide to do Ruby, that's totally cool. I think unfortunately we'll have to part ways on the video because I won't be doing, at least not until I complete JavaScript. I won't. Only then will I consider going back and doing a vlog style series on Ruby on Rails. So, and I may never do it. I don't know, but I'm definitely going to continue doing the vlog series on full stack JavaScript. So if you guys are here at this fork in the road and you decide to come along the journey with me on that, I would love to have you and continue on with you. And with that said, that's it, guys. So celebration here. So we are 100%. I am 100% complete with foundations. I'm going to move on to full stack JavaScript, and more fun will be had here in the coming future. So with all that said, please like, share, and subscribe if you haven't already for more content, and leave a comment below. Let me know which path you plan on taking. And with all that said, till next time, see ya.